shoelaces and workers' comp claims. There's a line of cases where if you're walking around with your shoelace untied and you trip over your shoelaces, that would not be a compensable claim. And the idea is it's not in the course of an arising out of employment because you did something unique to you. You chose to walk around in untied shoelaces, and by your choice of walking around in untied shoelaces, you are the architect of your own injury. You know, there's some level of personal responsibility. Usually is not in workers' comp cases, but with it's an interesting line of cases dealing with shoelaces and boots and these sorts of things. And that's, when I was reading this case, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a shoelace case or a boot case. But it wasn't. It's kind of unique how this played out. So that what ended up happening is this guy was working at FedEx, and I guess he had to go through some kind of metal detector, and he had taken off his boots, which would have triggered the metal detector. So he took off his boots, and while he was, and then he put on his shoes, which I guess weren't tied because he had taken them off, and then he tripped and fell, and he suffered some kind of fracture to his leg. And so his claim was allowed by the Industrial Commission, and then FedEx filed the claim to the Court of Common Pleas, and then so the injured worker has to defend it. And FedEx filed an appeal. Well, they filed the appeal, and then during the course of the 512 case, the court case, they filed a motion for summary judgment stating that there's no basis for which this injured worker could prevail on the issue of it did not arise out of his employment with FedEx, and mainly because of this shoelace situation. Well, that's primarily the reason. And their argument was the injury stemmed from personal actions of the injured worker. Again, he didn't tie his shoes, and that failure to tie his shoes led to his injury. So the court granted the summary judgment, and then so the injured worker filed an appeal, and this happened in the 9th District, so they filed an appeal to the 9th District Court of Common Pleas, or Court of Appeals, and the 9th District bounced it back, or remanded it back, denied. They said the trial court erred in granting summary judgment, and there's an issue of whether or not this did arise out of the course of employment, because the issue was he had to take off his shoes to go through the metal detector, and that was something that his employer required him to do, thus leading to his shoes being untied. So interesting turn of events. So that's the case.